Hello and welcome to another episode of Time About the Movies Flashback. Today we're flashing back to August 14th, 1987. We've got 5 movies to look at. Most of them are pretty memorable except for the last one we have here. But before we get to that, let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, which was Patrick Dempsey in the comedy Can't Buy Me Love.
Cindy Mancini and Ronald Miller live on the same street, but they're in totally different worlds.
Wouldn't you like to be popular?
Cindy's hot, Ronald's not, but he's got a plan that could change all that.
I want to rent you.
Rent me?
Yeah. You pretend you like me, and we go out for just a few weeks.
Just going out with me is not going to make you popular.
Well, I have $1,000. It says it will.
Now, the biggest social transformation in history
No hand-holding, no kissing, and I get my lunch hour off.
is about to begin.
Okay, Donald, we're ready.
Now, Cindy, one last thing.
Yeah.
My name is Ronald, not Donald.
I think that's Ronald Miller. Didn't you used to mow our lawn?
Ronald's over in no man's land, and he's still alive.
He's going from totally geek
Totally chic.
to totally out of control.
I have moves. All I ever did was think about you.
Say it yourself. Don't change, please.
Me change? Never.
It's the comedy that proves $1,000 can buy popularity, but it can't buy me love.
I mean, honestly, I wish it were that simple in high school. If I wanted to get a girl, I'd just be like, hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you pretend to be my girlfriend for a month. Like, you try to do that in real life, you get in trouble almost immediately, but not in the land of movies, where it's a sweet, heartfelt comedy. And, I mean, I just pretty much told you what the plot of the movie is. Patrick Dempsey is a nerd who pays a cheerleader $1,000 to be his girlfriend for a month, and, she changes his persona and puts him in a position where they might end up getting together at the end. Of course they're going to get together at the end. And we've seen movies like this many, many times. We've had movies like Drive Me Crazy was one of those examples. She's All That. Not another teen movie too, but yeah, it's a movie that, from the looks of it, you could tell right away that most people would probably look at it and go like, yeah, this would make no sense whatsoever. But there is kind of a unique charm to it. I mean, like I said, this is a story that would never work in the real world, but it's just a fun fantasy to see what happens when you have a nerdy guy like Dempsey's character in here, and he's just like, hey, I've got an offer for you, and let's see how this pans out. And it does work very well here. It's actually a pretty solid movie overall. That, yeah, doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the real world, but as it is, it works really fine for what they're trying to accomplish here. I think it's a very fun movie overall. You can buy into the chemistry that Patrick Dempsey and Amanda Peterson have together. You can buy that they do have a chemistry building, and they could be a good couple overall. It's cool to see interesting early appearances from people like Seth Green in the movie, Dennis Dugan, who would later go on to direct several Adam Sandler movies, Amy Dolenz from She's Out of Control, and even Paula Abdul has an uncredited appearance in the movie, and this was back when she was mostly a choreographer before she eventually became a musician. And yeah, it's one of those movies where you gotta go into it knowing that what you're going to see is pretty stupid. If you go into it with the wrong mindset, it's a film that you can easily hate right away. But if you go into it knowing exactly what kind of a movie it is, how silly it is, how totally unrealistic it is, you can go in there and have a really good time with it. And yeah, going into that mindset, I thought it worked very well overall. I thought it was a fun movie overall. I like what Dempsey and Peterson do together here, and it's nice to see this kind of an idea being put out in a film that does it many years before movies that I had mentioned before, like stuff like She's All That and Drive Me Crazy did way after this movie came out. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, it is what it is. If you go into it with the right mindset, knowing it's not going to be something that's going to be, you're not going in there to see a smart, realistic movie. You're not going in to see a John Hughes type of film. I think you go into it with the right mindset. You have a good time with it. I know I did when I watched this for the first time. It was pretty good. I thought it was all right. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here. Gene Hackman, Kevin Costner, and Sean Young in No Way Out.
They needed a hero.
I understand he has a background in intelligence. He has 2 tours with naval intelligence. Get him here.
He liked excitement.
Take us somewhere.
He wanted her. Their passion upset the balance of power.
What's all this top secret business I've been hearing about over the Pentagon?
You know I work for Bryce?
Then that makes two of us.
This one can do things for me like no other woman I've ever met.
Behind the cover-up.
Try and understand.
The power.
The important thing is to abort an investigation before it ever gets to you.
You haven't told me everything. Who's running this thing at the Pentagon?
The new boy, Farrell.
So we can take the fall in case anything goes wrong.
The loyalty.
I love you. I promise I'll work everything out.
How did you actually meet the Secretary of Defense?
I need a car. It's an emergency.
These people have already tried to kill one person who knew.
Bring this one down. No, you can't take that.
Behind the deceit.
If it were your intention to bring down David Bryce, then I'd have no choice but to make sure that you didn't get away with it.
They mean to kill me, Sam.
Because of the truth, there's no way out. Kevin Costner, Gene Hackman, Sean Young, Will Patton, no way out.
Well, I mean, Sean Young found a way out. It ended up killing her, but hey, at least she doesn't have to be the problem anymore. You have Kevin Costner, who is a Navy officer who gets posted at the Pentagon as to report to the Secretary of Defense, David Bryce, played by Gene Hackman. And he starts having an affair with Susan Atwell, played by Sean Young, not knowing that she is Bryce's mistress. When Susan is found dead, I almost said Sean, like Sean Young. Tom is assigned to the case of finding the killer, who is believed to be a KGB mole. Tom could soon be a suspect when a Polaroid negative of him was found at Susan's place. He now has only a few hours to find the killer before the computer regenerates the photo. And Kevin Costner was in a lot of these movies where he was put in that situation, where he was the third wheel. There was that movie Revenge that came out a few years later, directed by Tony Scott. But this is probably the best movie that this director, Roger Donaldson, has made. And he's made some pretty good movies, some fun films, like Cocktail, Cadillac Man. You know, he did stuff like White Sands, Species, lackluster stuff like 13 Days. Like, 13 Days was actually really good. No, I'm talking about the stuff like The Recruit was not that good. He made a really good Jason Statham movie, The Bank Job, that came out in 2008. And this is probably right up there with some of his best works overall. It probably is overall his best movie and showed what Kevin Costner was capable of as a star at this point. This was a really big year for him because he had this, and then before that he had The Untouchables. Gene Hackman shows he's still got what it takes. Sean Young is really good in the movie. You know, you see Fred Dalton Thompson in this, George DeZundra. A lot of notable names in here, and just a really engaging thriller overall that has a lot of great action overall, some great visuals to look at. The cinematography is nicely done. It's a really good movie, and one that I don't think gets as much attention as it probably does. It actually is one of Kevin Costner's more underrated movies, the more you think about it. I like it a lot. I think it's a really good movie. It's one you should definitely check out. No Way Out. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie here, and that is The Fat Boys, starring in Disorderlies.
If the Three Stooges made you laugh yourself sick, the Fat Boys could put you in the hospital. In Disorderlies.
That is literally how they sold the movie. They were really trying to make the Fat Boys turn into the next generation of the Three Stooges with this film. And, I mean, it kind of worked. Maybe not for the reasons they wanted it to, but I thought the movie was actually much more fun than I thought it was going to be. So you have Winston Lowry, who's played by Anthony Gary, who is a no-good indebted gambler, and a nephew of an elderly infirm millionaire played by Ralph Bellamy. Winslow seeks to speed up his uncle's demise by hiring three of the most inept orderlies he could possibly find. The trio, played by the Fat Boys, Marky, Buffy, and Cool, only mean well. However, when they fail to get his medicine, the ailing Albert becomes re-energized, and it turns out he was heavily over-medicated. In the end, the trio and Albert learn about Winslow's scheme and try to stop him. So this is the type of movie that you gotta go into it knowing what the movie is trying to sell you. If you know what you're going into with this film and know that you're going to get a movie that's not going to be very smart, but it knows it's trying to do something very unique and very interesting by, selling these guys as the next Three Stooges. It's a stupid idea, but it's an entertaining movie. I gotta be honest with you. When I watched this movie for the first time, I keep saying walk like I saw this in a theater in 1987. Yeah, I saw it 2 years before I was born. But, yeah, I gotta say, when I watched this for the first time, I did not expect to laugh as much as I did with this. This is actually a pretty stupid, fun movie. It's a film that is so ridiculous, so over the top, and so unbelievably silly that you just can't help but laugh at it, man. This is a film that is so ridiculous. It's so incredibly dumb, but at the same time, it's a kind of smart dumb. Like, they kind of know that maybe they're overselling these guys too much here, but they have a lot of charisma on screen. They were all, the director and these guys were in a movie before this called Crush Groove, which I had never seen before, and after watching this, I kind of want to watch that. But this director has done some films that have been more missed than hit. I mean, there's been a couple of ones, like, we've talked about Living Large, which I did not think was that good of a film overall. But he did do The Last Dragon. Last Dragon is a really good movie. Barry Gordon's The Last Dragon. And Carbon Copy, that movie where George Segal finds out that Denzel Washington is his son. This was back when Denzel Washington was still a relatively unknown actor. And I just remember the trailer being so ridiculous and silly. And watching that movie, too, I gotta admit, it's not a good movie, but I laughed pretty hard at that film for how just ridiculous and stupid it is. Maybe this is what this director's MO should be, because, yeah, he's made a lot of movies that are not the smartest ever, but, God, they are good times to watch overall. Because this is the guy that also did Cooley High, he did Car Wash, he did the infamously bad Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which is a so bad it's good type of movie, with some of the stuff that goes on in there. This guy knows what he's doing to entertain his audiences overall. This is definitely one of those movies that I'm glad I got to see when I did, because I had such a good time watching this movie. Like, it's a type of movie that, going into it, knowing how stupid it was going to be, it put me in the right mindset after having a really bad day, and it's just like, there's nothing more I can say about it, man. It's a fun, stupid movie that I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I was going to. I like this movie a lot. I think it's a very good movie. In terms of a very silly movie, a very silly comedy, but a very fun, silly comedy. And one I do recommend checking out. If you go into it with the right mindset, knowing what you're going into, kind of like what Can't Buy Me Love, you can have a real good time watching this movie. I know I certainly did with Disorderlies, a much better movie than I possibly could have imagined. Speaking of movies that I think could have been a whole lot better than I didn't think was possible, let's talk about Fred Decker's The Monster Squad.
They won't seem so young anymore. The Monster Squad.
Wolfman's got nards.
Wolfman's got nards. What more do I need to say about this movie, man? This is a great movie. This is a story about, a group of savvy children who are out to keep these monsters. A lot of them are past stage parodies of Universal monsters, including Count Dracula. You get the Wolfman, and, they have to stop them from controlling the world. And it's a film that knows, again, kind of like with Disorderlies and Can't Buy Me Love, it's a film that knows it's a highly ambitious movie, and it just knows that it can appeal to both kids and audiences, and it's such a good, fun time overall. But then again, when you have the scriptwriter like Shane Black, who of course has done many great movies, including Lethal Weapon and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and director Fred Dekker coming together, and also this is produced by Peter Hyams and Rob Cohen, back when these guys actually met, when you saw their names, they were actually behind a lot of really good stuff. Like, it's kind of hard not to get really invested in this movie. It's a very fun movie, a fun Halloween comedy that's not quite Ghostbusters, but it's a really fun concept overall. You do get behind these kids. You do get behind them becoming these heroes overall. It's a really good, fun movie, and the effects work in here is actually really good for a movie of this caliber that doesn't really have a whole lot of, big production value to it. Obviously, it's a much smaller budgeted movie, but it's a really good, fun movie. It's a fun 80s, it's the perfect 80s kid adventure movie. Kind of like, like Explorers and The Goonies. Like, it's right up there with those movies in general. Just a movie that knows it wants to have a good, fun time overall. They don't want to do something they don't want to be like one of those movies that, gets more ambitious and gets more ambitious and then lets people down in the end. They know exactly what they're doing here, and everyone's having a good time with this film. I like these actors a lot. I like this setup a lot. This is a really good movie, and one that I think is really, really impressively done. If you have not seen The Monster Squad, watch The Monster Squad, man. It is a good, fun time across the board. I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I highly recommend it. The Monster Squad is a must-see film. With all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie here, the one that I have never seen before, and you probably never even heard of until I tell you what it is. And that is North Shore.
It was the chance of a lifetime.
I'm going to Hawaii to surf the big waves in the North Shore. I may not make it, but I gotta try.
That turned into the time of his life. This is The North Shore, rated PG, now playing at theaters everywhere.
So the story here is that you have a young surfer from a wave tank in Arizona who heads to surf the season on the North Shore of Oahu to see if he has the skills to cut it as a pro surfer. As he progresses on his journey, he learns the qualities he possesses are not going to pull him through alone. Now, something that I really didn't pick up on when I first watched this trailer, and I had to go to the Wikipedia page too when I was looking this movie up here. Apparently, the movie Surf's Up, which I've talked about on Time About the Movies, and it's a great animated movie. Apparently, they took a lot of inspiration from this film, which, hey, if there's anything that says anything about this movie's memorability to it, at least somebody has seen this movie and said, you know, I want to put that in my Penguin surfing movie. And lo and behold, Surf's Up's a great movie that really works on its own merits. But this actually has some things about it that might be pretty interesting overall, just to see what this movie is like. I've never seen this film before, but I'm looking at the names that are involved in here. You have Nia Peebles, who, of course, went on to become an action star, not even an action star, an actress in Walker, Texas Ranger, and she was also a professional dancer that she had like a spin-off show to the Arsenio Hall show that was on after Arsenio. Didn't really last very long, but I remember her from that. But most notably, the story is written by Randall Kleiser, who did Grease and The Blue Lagoon, and written by Tim McCandless, who later went on to write The Iron Giant and Secondhand Lion. And the music is done by Richard Stone, who you know as the composer for many of Warner Brothers' classic animated shows from the 90s. So there was a lot there with this film that makes me kind of interested to see if it actually is as good as they're letting on here. I mean, I don't know. I've never heard about this movie before. I didn't even know this movie even existed until I looked it up on here. But it's a film I kind of want to see for the reasons that it inspired a really good animated movie that I really like and has some people that I'm really excited to see in this. So yeah, maybe one day I might definitely check this one out. But as it is, it's definitely got my interest peaked. It doesn't even look like a bad movie overall, honestly. It just looks like it could be a fun summer adventure film with a summer surfing film. So, like I said, maybe one day I'll definitely check it out for sure. But yeah, I'm not gonna see it anytime soon. If I find it somewhere, I mean, I don't even know if you can get this on DVD or not. That's how much I don't know much about this movie. But I'll do some research after I'm done recording this and maybe find out if I can get it for a cheap price. But it's definitely a movie I'm kind of curious about now. So that's North Shore. And so, with all of that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies Flashback. We flash back next time around to the start of August 1987, where we have 7 movies here to look at. Again, a lot of notable movies, including Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez in the hit film Stakeout, the infamously bad Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, and Courtney Cox. Maybe one of the most underrated comedies of all time. Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello reuniting again in the comedy Back to the Beach. We have Madonna in Who's That Girl? We have Nadine. Apparently this one went to theaters and I didn't know about it. The Care Bears in their third and final film, Adventures in Wonderland. I thought this went straight to TV back in the day, but I guess it was shown in theaters. And we also have Happy New Year. So we'll take a look at those 7 movies next time around. Should be a very fun show next time. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit the playlist on the next page and check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, notification button, and the bell below because you get updates on when new videos come out. We do post them every day. With all that said, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.